Hello, everyone, and welcome. You know, in our world today, we are just swimming in a sea of information. We keep hearing this term big data, and let's be honest, it sounds like a big, chaotic, tangled mess. But what if I told you that you could take all of that chaos and turn it into something clean, something structured, something that gives you incredibly valuable insights? Well, that's exactly what we're going to talk about today, the journey from total data chaos to crystal clear clarity.
So here's our game plan. First, we're going to tackle the big data challenge head-on. What is this giant, messy problem everyone's talking about? Then we'll get into organizing the chaos, and I'll show you how we can build a massive library for all this data. After that, we'll compare the warehouse versus the Mart, which is kind of like comparing the whole library to just one specific bookshelf. Then comes the fun part, turning data into decisions. And finally, we'll cover the most important rules of the library, governing the data, to make sure every single piece of information is trustworthy.
All right, let's jump right into the challenge. For businesses all over the world, big data is not just some fancy buzzword they throw around. No, it's a very real, very big operational problem that is pushing their old tools and systems to their absolute limits.
So, what are we really talking about here? Well, imagine trying to pour an entire river into a teacup. It's just not going to work, right? The teacup would overflow and break. That's big data. It's any collection of information that's so huge, coming in so fast, or is so complex that our old tools, like a simple spreadsheet, just can't handle it. They just weren't built for this. The very first characteristic that defines big data is its sheer volume. And when I say volume, I mean an almost unimaginable amount of data. We're talking petabytes. So what's a petabyte? It's 1,000,000 gigabytes. It would literally take you over 2,000 years to watch a petabyte of high-definition video. Now get this. The world is generating petabytes of data every single day from things like social media, all the sensors out there, and online shopping. That, my friends, is volume. The next V is velocity, and this one is all about speed. Think of it like trying to drink water from a fire hose. The data isn't just massive, it's streaming in constantly, and it needs to be processed almost instantly, in real time. A great example is the stock market. Trading decisions have to be made in microseconds. Or think about when you swipe your credit card. The system has to analyze that transaction right then and there to decide if it's real or if it's fraud. That incredible speed is velocity.
And rounding out our 3 V's is variety. You see, in the old days, data was mostly nice and neat. It fit perfectly into rows and columns in a spreadsheet. We call that structured data. But today, oh boy. Today we have a flood of what we call unstructured data. Things like customer emails, comments on social media, photos, videos, even voice recordings. The real challenge here isn't just that these different types of data exist, but that a company needs to somehow combine and analyze them all together to get the full story.
So when you put this massive volume, this crazy velocity, and this complex variety all together, you run into some really big problems. You've got data coming from all over the place. Some sources you can't even trust. A lot of it is dirty, meaning it's full of mistakes or missing information. Plus, it's always changing. Your old systems simply can't keep up. They can't scale. This is the heart of the big data challenge. But hey, for every big challenge, there is a solution. So let's move on to our next section, organizing the chaos. If big data is like a messy pile of books and magazines thrown all over your floor, then a data warehouse is the answer. It's like building a huge, perfectly organized library to put everything in its right place.
So how exactly do we build this amazing data library? Well, the secret sauce is a 3-step process called ETL. Let's break it down. First, on the left, you extract. This just means you're pulling in data from all your different sources, your sales records, your website, your social media accounts. Next, and this is the most important step, you transform it. This is where the magic happens. You clean up the data, fix all the errors, get rid of duplicates, and make sure everything is in a standard format. Finally, you load that beautiful, clean data into your central data warehouse. Without that transform step, you're just moving garbage from one place to another.
Now, a proper data warehouse isn't just a giant storage unit, it has 4 very special qualities. First, it's integrated, which means all your company's data is in one place, creating a single source of truth for everyone. Second, it's time variant, so you can look back in time and analyze trends over months or even years. Third, it's non-volatile. This is a big one. It means once data is in the warehouse, it doesn't get changed or deleted. It's a permanent record you can always trust. And finally, it's multidimensional, which lets you slice and dice the data from all sorts of different angles to answer really complex questions.
Okay, so having this massive company-wide library is fantastic. But let's be real, not everyone needs to read every single book. Sometimes a team just needs one specific aisle. And that brings us to the difference between a data warehouse and a smaller data mart.
The main difference really comes down to scope. A data warehouse is for the entire company. The top bosses use it to make big, strategic decisions, like, should we launch our product in a new country? A data mart, on the other hand, is a smaller, focused slice of that data built for just one department. The marketing team might use their data mart to make tactical decisions, like which of our online ads performed the best last month.
And this table here really lays it all out. It all starts with the scope. Because the warehouse is for the whole company, its size is huge. We're talking terabytes or even petabytes. And it's used by top management for those big-picture strategic decisions. In contrast, the Mart is just for one department, so it's much smaller, used by a specific team, and focused on their immediate goals. The purpose really defines everything else.
Okay, so we've taken all that chaotic data, we've cleaned it up, and we've organized it into this beautiful library. Now for the really exciting part. Let's talk about how we turn all this organized data into actual smart decisions that can change a business.
This is where something called business intelligence, or BI, comes in. If the data warehouse is the library, you can think of BI as the team of expert researchers who know exactly where to find the right information, connect all the dots, and deliver powerful insights that help the business make smarter moves. It's the essential bridge from just having data to actually knowing what to do with it.
Now, one of the core technologies that powers BI is called OLAP. That stands for Online Analytical Processing. It sounds a bit technical, but really it's the engine that allows people to explore data from many different angles. It lets you do things like slicing, where you look at just one piece of the data, like sales from last year, or dicing, where you zoom in on an even more specific piece. It turns a boring report into an interactive investigation.
So how does OLAP do all this cool stuff? Well, it often uses a structure called a data cube. Just look at this. Think of it like a Rubik's Cube, but for your data, already organized by things like product, region, and time. Because all the numbers are pre-calculated and structured like this, asking a really specific question like, hey, what were the sales of screws in the West region back in 2013 becomes super fast. The answer is basically already there, just waiting for you to look at it.
Of course, finding an insight is only half the job. You have to present it in a way that people can actually understand. And BI tools are fantastic at this. For a busy CEO, they can create a dashboard that shows all the key business numbers at a single glance. For an analyst, they use data visualization, like charts and maps, to make complicated information easy to understand. And to find those surprising hidden gems, they use data mining to automatically spot patterns you never would have seen on your own.
We've now reached our final, and you know what, maybe our most important section, governing the data. Because having a huge, perfectly organized library is completely useless if all the books are filled with wrong information. You have to, absolutely must, ensure that your data is trustworthy.
This is the job of data governance. Think of it as the official rulebook for your data library. It's the formal system of policies and controls that make sure your data is managed properly. It answers all the big questions like, who has permission to see what information? How do we keep it all safe and secure? And most importantly, who is responsible for making sure the data is accurate in the first place?
So, the bottom line is this. Everything we've talked about is built on a foundation of high-quality data. And that means the data must be accurate, it has to reflect what's really happening in the world. It needs to be consistent across all your different systems. And it has to be timely. It needs to be up-to-date and ready when you need to make a decision. Without these three things, your whole system is built on sand, and any decision you make could be wrong.
And that leaves us with one final, really important thought. We've seen how organizations can take data chaos and turn it into incredible power. But with that power comes a very great responsibility. So the ultimate question every company needs to ask itself isn't just, how can our data make us more successful, but rather, how do we build a culture that ensures our data is and always will be truthful? Thank you so much for joining me on this journey.